Yep. Okay. Offer one more amendment now. When we talk about our economy, I think there are a couple of important factors that we can probably all agree on. Number one, real unemployment is much too high. We need to create many millions of new jobs. And number two, wages are much too low. We have many, many millions of working people. And in my state, people are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, but their wages are so low, and many of them don't have decent health care benefits, they're really struggling to keep their heads above water. Sadly, the federal minimum wage today pays only a little over $15,000 a year. That is nearly $1,000 below the poverty threshold for a single parent. Since 1968, the real value of the federal minimum wage has fallen by close to 30%. If the minimum wage had kept up with inflation since 1968, it would be worth at least $10.10 per hour today. So the amendment that I am officing is a deficit reserve fund amendment.
Thank you.
Which substantially raises the minimum wage. And what it says to people all over this country, that if you're going to work 40 hours a week or more, you are not going to live in poverty. I think, as every person around this room knows, there is widespread support for this concept. In those states where the issue has been placed on the ballot, even in conservative states, it has won overwhelmingly. And what people understand is you cannot live on $15,000 a year. You can't bring up a family on $15,000 a year. You can't pay rent. You can't deal with health care. You can't deal with child care if you're earning a starvation minimum wage of $7.25. So what this amendment says to millions of working people, we understand your struggle. We're going to help a little bit by raising the minimum wage substantially so that when you work 40 hours a week, you can live in dignity. And that's it. That's what this amendment is about.
Having been through a number of these minimum wage debates now, the last time was when Senator Kennedy was with us, and there was a raise in the minimum wage, but one of the substantial points that is always brought up is that we have higher unemployment, as you mentioned, underemployment. We've got a whole bunch of problems with employment right now, and beginning wage is minimum wage, and beginning skills is the reason for those minimum wages. And what we need to do is increase the skills, which we've given the opportunity through the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. And I've had some discussions with some people who were very offended that the other side referred to their job as dead-end jobs. I was visiting with a person who called it a dead-end job, and the person standing next to me said, well, I work at Burger King, and I have shown up on time. I know how to address customers. I've learned how to make change, and I've been promoted to supervisor. And if I continue to do that for one more year, I'm going to get to run one of these Burger Kings. So what we need to do is increase skills, and we have a thing called Climb Wyoming in Wyoming that allows single mothers to increase their job skills tremendously and get into non-traditional occupations and make a lot of money, which is the direction that I hope that we can go with improving America, is to get people into jobs that pay substantially more and get them the minimum skills so that they can bypass that minimum skill position. Senator Sessions?
Well, supply and demand is a real factor in the world, and you bring in more labor from abroad, the price of American labor declines. CBO said that the comprehensive immigration bill, had it passed, would have reduced wages and raised unemployment, and that per capita, the key per capita GDP in America would fall. So that's one issue that I think we ought to think about, and without government dictating precisely what wages ought to be. And I would okay.
I don't know how we're doing this. Is it possible to make it?
I think we have a few seconds on my side.
Okay, he says we've got 2 seconds on
Not
each
two, a few
side.
seconds.
Well, I just want to indicate for the record that I think that anybody who's working a full-time job should not be in poverty, and that's what's happening today with our minimum wage. And we're not going to grow an economy without a middle class, and that means more people working with money in their pockets.
Simple truth is that millions of Americans are working at wages that are grossly inadequate. The minimum wage today, in inflation accounted for dollars, is far lower than it was back in the 1960s. And if we are concerned about allowing low-income people to live with dignity and earn enough money to take care of their basic needs, it is time for a substantial increase in the minimum wage, and I would ask for your support for that amendment.
There really isn't any need to have any kind of a fund in order to debate minimum wage. It can be brought to the floor under any circumstances, so I'd urge a no vote.
Yeah, roll call vote on that, please.
Roll call's been, please call the roll.
Mr. Graff.
No.
Mr. Sessions. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Graham. Mr. Portman. Mr. Toomey.
No.
Mr. Johnson.
No. Sessions.
Ms. Ayotte.
No.
Mr. Wicker. Mr. Corker. No. Mr. Perdue.
No.
Mr. Sanders.
Aye.
Ms. Murray. Mr. Wyden. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Warner. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Kane. Mr. King. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, the yeas are 10, the nays are 12.
That amendment's been defeated.